You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I'm Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
So today we are talking about the saga of the canon son of Superman and Wonder Woman, Hunter Prince. And we're going to use the storylines JLA, Power and Glory, Timeless, and Legacy. So, as you guys know, whenever we go through a story, we like to actually go through the story page by page and stuff. So we're going to do that. And then we like to discuss, then we'll have a PowerPoint at the end that we'll discuss. So Britt, you want to start us off on Power and Glory?
Okay, so with this story, this is by Bryan Hitch and drawn by Bryan Hitch. It was, I think, a part of DCU. Yeah, it was. And it was basically, I'm guessing, telling like the earlier times of New 52 Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to this in the PowerPoint, but it was just when this book came out, it was well, I would say that DC has a problem with delays, and especially with its like all-star writers and artists. So this book was delayed and everything, and tons of changes by the end, and things like that. But it was for, I would say, a one-off arc. It was pretty good, and
I liked it.
yeah. So basically, the story is basically just um the Justice League was invited um to this, I guess, laboratory or something, and it was a test, and it was going through the multiverse, and then all of a sudden the a god from Krypton appears,
Wow.
and it is honestly that part is, especially with Superman's um with his side of things, you never see Krypton like really explored. So
Which
to
is
have,
fun.
and yes, and to have this story really shows the depth that you can really go into with that sci-fi mythology. And also it really just brings about how connected Clark and Diana is, because if you have the gods of Krypton, or a god of Krypton, and then Diana understanding the Greek gods, putting that together, it just creates like this massive story that you can
And they,
have.
they actually play into that, as we'll see later in the story, where he finds Rowan, in the first person he calls it Diana.
Oh yeah, that little scene I loved.
Which we'll talk about that in a second. So let's get started. So issue 1, and I'll be going through issue by issue. Yeah, it was part of DCU. Unfortunately, this was the one good part of DCU.
Right.
So in terms of timeline, I would say this takes place after Justice League 12, or after Throne of Atlantis, for obvious reasons, because Superman and Wonder Woman are a couple in this. That's the one thing where I'm like, okay, it takes place from this story and on.
Yeah, I was trying to place this, and that seems about right.
Yeah, and I thought somewhere on the trade it said it was out of continuity or something like that, but I may be wrong on that.
Okay, so I think it was supposed to be, it's kind of like it's in limbo, or walking a fine line.
It's
And
if it's
it's
popular, it's canon.
right. And the fact that near the end, that if this story was supposed to be standalone, they, of course, editorial wants to mess up everything. So, so once we get to the end, you'll see that they wanted this story in canon because of what happens to Superman.
Yeah, and we'll see on that. But and by the way, I do agree with you, Britt. Of the new 52 books, this was one of my favorites because this came out when I first got this as a trade. I was like, this is when I was regularly picking up the trades of Jeff Johns' Justice League. So I of course picked this up because it had JLA and Justice League. Even though it didn't have Jeff Johns on it, I was still interested. The art was kind of jarring because I was used to like Jim Lee art, but I was like, okay, you know what? I'll give this a shot. And what immediately blew me away is like how epic this story is, like massive and epic. This is almost like a Zack Snyder movie. That's my obligatory reference to Zack Snyder. Hashtag sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. There you go. Continuing on. So these fantastic character covers, by the way. I like how the Green Lantern one is like, I think these were connecting covers. If
Yeah,
I'm,
they were.
if I remember correctly, I know it's because Cyborg has a little green glow on him, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a Wonder Woman cover in this that we'll see later that where she has like 2 guns, and I'm like, I kind of want to see that in the movies. Continuing on, and then we have some, I think some Porter art, which is pretty cool. So then it opens up, and then we see like Superman going, "Look what you've done! It's too late! It's all too late!" Boosh! The Earth blows up. And then he's like floating, and then the body is picked up. So what this is kind of showing, what will be revealed later, is that Supermen across the multiverse are dying, and people are trying to, and like this one organization is trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah, which again, with this story supposing to be like, yeah, a multiverse story, but also like a standalone. So trying to have like Superman dying, of course, that's the generic, you know, overdone trope, but also the fact of trying to tie that in with what they wanted to do with New 52 Superman and, kill him off. So it's kind of like, all of these different instances of him dying or getting hurt, it all, combines with the end result of him dying off permanently.
Which is kind of stupid, which again plays into the whole Batman thing of the only time you ever inspired anyone is when you were dead. I'm like, a whole move.
Yeah.
But so then Clark gets an invitation by the Infinity Corporation. I love how it says, "Please dress appropriately." Wink, wink.
Right.
Sure.
That is
I love
yeah.
that. Go ahead.
And it's also the fact of like it's so it's like it's an ordinary invitation, but the fact that he can pick up, or anyone can pick up on the fact that this isn't just something ordinary, especially for him, for Clark Kent to get, something like this. It has to be something that has to do with the Justice League. And yeah, for Lois to be, of course, annoying here too and being nosy
Well, she's
is,
Lois, but I
yeah.
love how she asked Clark, "How you gonna get there?" He goes, "Of course I'm gonna fly." So I'm like, that's so good. I love the humor for this. So then we have like the organization at the mall, which is essentially a supermax prison, is escorting a supervillain. And Superman shows up and he goes, "Okay, you got our invitation and everything like that." And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's a lead foil, very clever," and just had the Superman logo on there with some kind of invisible ink. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So
Yeah, it's kind
then
of cool.
they basically show up and see like a lot of dead Supermen. See, my one criticism is it would have been cool if the costumes were different instead of just all the new 52 Superman.
Right. Honestly, I think that because this was a standalone, so I'm guessing like it's that he was supposed to have. I don't, I think it was different timelines, like of the same Superman, but different timelines. So that is why they had the same uniform.
Mm-hmm.
That's just
Okay.
my guess.
Okay, that kind of works. and they're explaining to him that like they keep popping, it's Supermen keep popping up through the machine that say and the one thing they always say is don't trust him. And then he's like, wait, what do you mean him? It's the typical like tropey thing where it's like, don't trust him. I'm dead. But it's cool the way Bryan Hitch does it. By the way, fun fact, Bryan Hitch rose to prominence through because he was the writer on the Ultimates, which was the Ultimate Avengers, and a lot of the character designs for the Marvel movies are because of his art, because he really modernized and like the reason why Captain America looks tactical in the movies is because of his art.
Oh, nice.
Because he draws a lot of like hyper realistic characters, which I love. And then Aquaman is talking to the UN about like about Atlantis stuff, and he goes into the ocean, and then so Superman is obviously like, what the hell is going on here? And he thinks they're hiding stuff. He even goes, explain now. And he goes, Superman, we're trying to explain, but this guy can be a little challenging. Can you please like calm down? And then it's like they go through the whole explanation about how across the multiverse, your death is kind of a constant right now. It's a fixed beat. It's essentially a canon event, if you will. And imagine that. Imagine being told that your death is a canon event across the multiverse.
It's just really cheapening the death thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like a self drag and basically like a criticism, a critique that, you know, Superman, he has to die at some point. Is like, that is the thing. If you anytime it doesn't matter if they reboot, it doesn't matter if it is, you know, in Elseworlds or something like that, at some point that Superman has to die. And it's really ridiculous to me because I'm like, okay, it, where's the stake in that? Because you know he's gonna come back to life. Well,
Just
not New
comics.
52, but it's still the fact that that's there. Like, okay, he
Did you know they
died.
did bring him back though?
They did, but
In
it
the
in the
Sideways book.
sideways,
I know
right?
no one knows he's actually alive, and they won't let, because at that point again they could have redeemed this and gone, okay, so wait a second, what if he goes, I have to get back to Diana, so he's trying to find his way back to his Earth? That would be
Yeah,
cool. But
or you could
again,
just,
DC doesn't do the right stuff.
because they're too, as the Dio said, they are too lazy and they are too scared to, you know, do something different.
Yeah. So Hal Jordan shows up and arrives at the power plant, because apparently there's like a big blackout at the power plant. So he shows up and he goes, hello, anyone? Maybe I'm being too subtle. And then Wonder Woman shows up and goes, I doubt it, Green Lantern. Subtle was never your forte. I'm like, I love it. I love the banter that's always there between Diana and Hal, going back to like Justice League Volume 2, when she goes and they're fighting and he goes, this gives me no pleasure, but I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm like, I love 252 Diana so much. And I love how like Hal goes, Diana, have you scouted the facility? And Flash shows up and goes, I already did it twice. There's nothing here. And of course, Batman's up there being Batman. I'm sorry, what did you want to say?
I was gonna say, of course, Flash already, you know, basically scoped out everything.
Yeah, he's the Flash. So there you go. There was this great line in Suicide Squad where someone's about to shoot the Flash. I think it was Deadshot, and then Captain Boomerang goes, "He's the Flash. Why don't you mail him the bullets?" It's so good. I love that song. There was a lot of good lines in that, like when Boomerang goes, "Yeah, Superman. Oh no, it's Superman."
Right. I mean, even though the game has its issues, which every game has its issues, their lines, some of the lines were still, it was pretty entertaining.
And they hinted at SuperWonder in that. I'm sorry, the way Superman like hesitated when he saw Wonder Woman at first, I'm like, nope, there's something going on there. And it's the Arkhamverse, so it's in the best universe. So continuing on, so Batman is checking this box, and it actually starts to absorb energy from Green Lantern, and then it says hungry, and then it breaks open, and it's Parasite. So it was escorting Parasite in that container, and I'm like, I like that. I like how he can just draw. He doesn't even have to touch Green Lantern. He can just draw the energy from it. That's so intimidating. And by the way, Parasite's a villain that I'm surprised we haven't seen show up in an actual live action movie. He was in the animated movie, but not live action.
Well, I think that with Parasite, I guess. Well, no, it's really no excuse. But with Superman, it's kind of like they're stuck in this, like, well, like the current movie in production. Lex Luthor is the main villain.
Or
They're
the
stuck.
clone Ultraman.
Yeah, they're stuck. Well, I think they're basically going to do how like Wonder Woman did when you had a main villain, but then you have like the side villain too, but they're like working together. That's
That's
basically what they're
fine.
doing.
The reason why I'm pissed is that Ultraman is not the clone of Superman. But literally, you just have to call him Bizarro, and you're good to go.
Yeah, but you want to make it a little bit complicated, or maybe James Gunn is trying to blend in, you know, multiple characters into one or something like that. You never know. Or maybe Ultraman ends up turning into Bizarro.
But Brit, James Gunn is gonna save DC, and like he's this big comic nerd. So I don't know. So
yeah.
yeah, so Parasite fights the Justice League. I love how he grabs Flash and then he gets massive. And actually, it's kind of funny. Parasite was one of the cool parts of the Tomasi Superman Wonder Woman book, because to power him up, Wonder Woman had to like hold his hand for like a certain amount of time. And I kind of there was some good parts of that book. So continuing on, Wonder Woman saves the Flash from being absorbed. Superman is still like, yeah, I'm dying. But I love how the image he sees of Parasite destroying the Justice League is just Diana. So he's like, up, I gotta go. He's like, my girlfriend is in danger. I got to go to action. And then and then I love where Parasite tries to absorb her, and then Superman just like a bullet right through it. He goes, nope.
And then
yeah, go ahead.
Whatever Parasite like does with she says that she hears voices.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, what kind of power? I've never known Parasite to, get in someone's head to like that.
Well, even Parasite is like, who's doing this? It's like they don't even know that. And I like how Hal Jordan is like, okay, so I'm going to throw literally every construct I can at you, including a giant shark. He's like, nope, I'll show you what I can do with this. He's like, oh no. And then Aquaman shows up at Atlantis, and he said that actually so someone showed up, and it's like he wanted Olympus, and not Atlantis, he wanted Olympus. And he goes, and then I love how like Aquaman goes, I'm on good terms with the god of war. So, and I'm like, yeah, so this is also establishing Diana is the god of war at this point. So
okay, so that means that this book is placed after Throne of Atlantis, but it's probably after, well, of course, after Trinity War, and of course, in between the first arc of Superman and Wonder Woman, or at the end.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really down the line somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
if you want to try and canonize it.
Yeah.
So continuing on, again, Superman is helping Wonder Woman. She has all these voices in his head. She said, since that monster touched me, consumed me, I can hear so many voices crying out in pain and agony. And then, so what this could be, because that this is that, and Hitch has said, and we'll say this later, that this is like the prologue for his Justice League run. So maybe this is like this is like the first hinting of the kindred, maybe, or it could be what happens with the story later on.
Well, yes, like just said, and we'll get to that later, is that this story is supposed to be a prologue, but honestly, which again we're going to get to later, is I think his rebirth, uh, well, I know his rebirth run was actually this. So the stories that he had for, this run, he just basically, rewrote it to fit within rebirth.
No wonder I like that Rebirth Justice League book so much, because it was basically just New 52 but rewritten. So I was like, okay, I kind of like that. And then the League battles Parasite, and Flash like knocks him knocks him back, and Parasite keeps getting big because he's absorbing the Speed Force. And then the scientists that were interrogating Superman sneak into the Infinity Corporation. Then we have Cyborg shows up. He just boom tubes in. He's like, absorb this. And by the way, this is taking place after Forever Evil, because what happened in Trinity War is that Cyborg's like body ripped him out of it, became Grid, and then later on in a later volume of Justice League, Cyborg was given a new, like, more sleek body, and that's what that is.
Okay.
So it's like really down the line in Justice League.
Yeah. So that really just shows that within they could have had this book really to fill in the blanks too, of like if the main Justice League book was an event book, which it turned into, they could have this book as the smaller, adventures of the Justice League to basically fill in the blanks of, what we might have missed or what we did miss within the main Justice League book. And that was something that the Superman and Wonder Woman book was supposed to be too. Was, yeah, their relationship was introduced in the Justice League book, but here, and even if you don't want to have the relationship just consumed in the solo books, they have their own book, and you can tie everything in and also just fill in the blanks. That would have been a much better way to handle, all of these books and building the relationships that they were,
because that's supposed to be how like one of the main differences between Batman and Detective Comics, because Batman is like the main Batman book, and Detective Comics is everything else that's happening around Batman. But whatever. So what's kind of interesting is that Diana vanishes. Hal's ring goes beginning evacuation protocols because the bearer is unable to respond and recharge, because Parasite first absorbed the power from the ring, so it's already low on battery power, and Hal is unable to charge it, so the ring has this emergency evacuation thing. Flash runs so fast that of course he's the Flash. He goes into another dimension, and then so Green Lantern and Flash are actually dragged into these portals, and Diana's gone. Superman continues to fight Parasite. He goes, I got this. You got to track him. And Cyborg manages to like overload. Their idea is to like overload Parasite, which kind of reverts him back down to like tiny Parasite. And obviously our three leaguers are like, what is going on? Where our friends are gone. And then this big ass fortress shows up. And then what's kind of funny is to mirror Man of Steel, on everyone's screen it says, do not be afraid. It's like, you are not alone. And he goes, be at peace. I mean you no harm. Do not hide. Come into the light. And Batman goes, should we be worried? Do you know what that is? Have you seen it before? And then Superman goes, it was just a myth. It can't be real. He floats up and he goes, it's really him. I am great God Rao, and I have come to save you. So Rao is the Kryptonian god of the sun, essentially. So
you can definitely have the god of the sun, Krypton, and Apollo. Apollo would be so jealous and wanting to fight Rao. He really would.
And you can have Superman go, you already fought a guy who gets his powers from the sun, and that didn't end so well. So you really wanted to, you really want to fight the literal Kryptonian god of the sun? Just
Right.
Clark screwing with Apollo. I love it.
So now
So,
we go
mhm.
to
Yeah, issue
the
2.
second issue.
Yes, Deathstroke. There you go. This Deathstroke series was great because this is when Deathstroke got the God Killer sword and showed up on Themyscira. And what's kind of cool is that the gods hired him to kill the super god, if I remember correctly. And so somehow Slade is de-aged and he has both his eyes in the story. So what happens and this is so cool. So the gods basically say, so Slade does not fulfill the contract, and they go, well, then you have to pay in blood. So they were going to kill one of his kids. So Slade picks out his own eye and goes, "You want blood? Take your pick."
Wow, and this was written by Tony Daniel.
Written and drawn by Tony
Right,
Daniel.
yeah.
This is when Deathstroke and Superman show up on Themyscira, thereby making the whole Greg Rucka of "I've never been home" kind of stupid.
Yes, that is what I was just about to bring up, is you have this Deathstroke book, you have even Hesha, and just even if you want to, which they have reprinted, the Tomasi Gleason Batman and Robin book, when Damian died and Batman goes to, having these adventures, brave and bold adventures with Aquaman, then Wonder Woman, and all of that to bring Damian back. Batman was on Themyscira. So even with Alaka,
Mhm.
so it's kind of like, how is this supposed to be an illusion to the reader?
Yeah,
It really
too many
doesn't make
people
any
are being
sense.
illused for it to be a valid illusion. But by the way, I love that. I love Francis Manipul's art because the way he does color. So there is that. I like how it's a little glow on Batman. So continuing on, and then we have a Teen Titans Go thing. I didn't know Teen Titans Go went that far back. Wow.
Yeah, it has been for a very long time.
Yeah. So now we see Rao. So here's the funny part. So Superman touches him, but the thing about Rao is that he's giving off red sunlight, and that takes away Superman's powers. So that's actually a really cool way to do it. Have like the god have the one sun the one like ray of sunshine, if you will, that takes away his powers, which kind of works because Krypton had a red sun, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it did.
So Rao shows up and goes, "Okay, I'm here to save your civilization, just like I saved Krypton." And then Superman's like, "Yep, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna help you." And by the way, I really dig its design for Rao. And by the way, McFarlane, how come this guy isn't an action figure?
Honestly, so far, not only as an action figure, but the first issue and then this scene alone, why wasn't this adapted? Like,
I Because actually that's a kick ass Superman move. If you have like Rao showed up, oh boy.
this as a Justice League movie, within, like, there were so many. What New 52 overall? Um, it was to provide, uh, like an expansion of media, and you wanted a new audience.
Mm-hmm.
So with the stories that they had, the stories were events. They were
Mm-hmm.
big, bombastic, maybe ambitious, maybe too ambitious at times, but they were events. And in the way that the splash pages were, that the detail of the art, you can tell that they pretty much wanted this to be adapted in animation or, live action. And I mean, for you to have this missed opportunity with these stories and reading over these stories and seeing how, yeah, this was intentional. It's like you wasted so much time, and now DC's animation is so, well, it's pretty much non-existent. Even with the Tomorrowverse, you're basically doing the same thing, or things were done off screen. And you're rushing through Crisis, which they rewrote it to be an original,
Mhm.
but it's still the fact that you're so stuck on the same stories. It's basically like
Lois.
right. It's basically like old house, new paint, but at the same time, the repairs that the old house needs, you are just covering it up. And
Exactly. And here's the thing: it's like people. I've heard people say, well, "How come the only villain we ever see with the Justice is Darkseid?" I'm like, well, it shouldn't be that way because you have all these other villains. But anyway, continuing on because we have to get. So we have the world reacting to Rao showing up. And what's kind of interesting about this is like Superman's like this is like the because remember up until this point Superman thought he was the last survivor of Krypton, the last relic of his people, and then you see Rao and it's imagine how much that means to him. And then Aquaman's on Atlantis, and then he meets like a prophet of Rao. And the way that Rao works is that he has these prophets that he sends out to spread the good news of Rao. It's going to be it's going to be revealed later the sinister nature of these prophets, but it's actually I really dig this. So um uh, uh, so essentially the prophet goes, allow me to preach to your people, and then Arthur says, okay, they're my people, I'll let them make the choice, let them make up their own minds. And I'm like, okay, that works. That's partly why he's a good ruler. And you have like obviously the military is responding, and Superman's like, don't worry, it's totally fine, I'll vouch for him, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but still. And I love how Batman has like this bat cycle, this bat ATV. And I'm like, every time there's like a bat vehicle, I'm like, how come I've never seen that before? I guess it's because it's convenient for the plot. So Batman shows up. He's very suspicious because he's Batman. And because here's the thing, and Bruce is like, and Bruce rightly so is like, okay, so we know nothing about like, so first he's like, so first Parasite attacks, then Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern are like vanish, then Rao shows up, and then you have all these prophets of Rao, and then Rao show up, which you know next to nothing about. Something doesn't add up, which is yeah, there you go, and then so essentially Batman's like, I have to be prepared for what, everything. And yeah, and this is a little like when Batman reveals he has his Kryptonian protocols, and then Cyborg goes, Kryptonian protocols, he goes, a lot of people have spent time trying to come up with ways of killing or stopping all of us. I like to keep track of every one of them, even the ones nobody hears about. And I'm like,
honestly, I, honestly though, a lot of Batman, like it's an over exaggeration. And again, that is something that could be in the movie where it's just like over the top Batman preparation or whatever. It's something that you don't need to take serious because how all of a sudden is he prepared for like this Kryptonian or god invasion or whatever.
mhm.
It's just
It
it's
gets ridiculous
so
at some point. The
yeah.
whole because he's Batman thing is getting kind of old. There was this funny meme I saw where it was to two most deadly people with prep time. It's Batman and Kevin McAllister from Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So then, Cyborg is trying to it booms away because he's got stuff he's got to do, and then Batman is like, I'm gonna go uh try and find the other leaguers and figure out what I know about the Infinity Corporation. He goes, I'll keep busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. Then Lois Lane is writing stories about do we need another god, and I'm like, well, here's the thing. Arguably, you have 7. So what do you mean another god? I'm like, I get what they're going for because there's like more of a religious god, but it's kind of weird. And we have Rao in front of the UN, Rao in front of Times Square. We see the cathedral, and then what I'm trying to get to is when Superman calls Diana. But in the meantime, we see inside the cathedral, it's all red lights, which I know is very dangerous for Superman. And then essentially, the thing about Rao is that supposedly he's healing all ailments. Essentially, he's pulling a Jesus Christ and committing all these miracles, saying, "Worship me." So
Yeah,
it's kind
and
of
and
it's interesting here.
and not only does this really, provides a challenge for Superman, but it's also the the idea that so many people have that Superman is like this space Jesus, but Rao is basically that. And it
Hmm.
really shows that for him, he wants to be worshipped. He wants to, use his powers to heal, but it's manipulative. It's very like you said, follow me, and I will end up being like your ruler. With Superman, he is doing it out of just the kindness of his heart,
Hmm.
just just being who he is. And yes, he is exemplifying a leader to be better than what happened to Krypton, because obviously Rao's, that whole thing, even if he saved Krypton once, he didn't save it again, or his methods at whatever that may have been at that time caused the um caused,
Yeah, the
Krypton
plan to
to
blow
no
up.
longer, yeah. So it really shows the back and forth between, you know, this Kryptonian and Superman, and it's so much better, honestly, a little bit more depth
Yeah.
spiritually and mentally than Zod,
Oh
you know.
yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And what you also discover later, I'm not going to bury the lead on this. So obviously, the light of Ra is healing people, but the other thing it does, so Zod, Zod. Well, that's a Freudian slip. Ra gets his power by people worshiping him. So that's why he's sending out his prophets so he can get more powerful. And obviously, Zod has this. I keep doing it. Rao has a conversation with
That was
Cal.
my bad.
Thanks, Brit. Jeez. So they have a conversation about like the destruction of Krypton, and then even Rao goes, "Hey, listen, I saw you escape Krypton. Here's the thing." He goes, I should be the one apologizing because I was your god. I should have been able to protect Krypton, and I didn't do that. And then Superman essentially goes, I am in every part of you, Kal-El, and every part of you knows me, and all that. It's very like very religious and stuff. So then again, we get more of the news about thanks, Britt, about Rao healing people. Jeez, this is gonna murder me this whole episode, man. And what's kind of interesting is that Batman is not exactly a person of faith. He's more a person of logic. So he's like, wait a second, something's off here, because this is too good to be true. In other words, that like this god shows up and he just happens to be benevolent, and then everyone's getting healed. There's got to be a catch here. Turns out Batman's right, but and then so now we have Clark calling Diana, and I just love this conversation when he goes, Diana, it's Clark. I went looking for you and couldn't find you. I hope you're okay. Something's happening, something amazing and maybe wonderful, pun intended, that could change everything, and I mean everything. Krypton's god is here. He came to Earth. Rao, the Kryptonian god, came to Earth, and I want you to meet him. He's healing the sick, all the sick, and he wants to do more than that. Tell me where you were. I'm worried. Barry and Hal are gone, and I should have been looking for all of you, but the stuff with Rao happened so quickly. The world is going to change, and we should all be together for this. Maybe this is a prayer for all of you. Rao will keep you safe. And then Diana wakes up and Olympus is blown up.
I mean, honestly, again, the art and the way this sequence of all of this is so like episodic, and it should be in movie form, like a two-parter or whatever. But the way this is structured is so good,
Mm-hmm.
and it is well. First of all, Clark, he's. I love the fact that he is such an optimistic person within this because so many people think that New 52 Superman was just this angry, he with the red eyes, with the,
Here's
you
your
know,
answer right here. It's because of this little initiative right here. When they gave him the motorcycle and he was all like down, even in Tomasi's Superman and Wonder Woman.
yeah, it's the fact that they pick and choose certain things that wasn't the overall character. And it's some people even complaining about the earlier Morrison issues of him, and it's kind of like, did you not read? Well, obviously you didn't. The
Cool.
Golden
Yeah.
Age.
You just answered your own question there, Britt.
I did. It's like, of course, you did not read that because you would not have a problem with his New 52 characterization. Yes, it was inconsistent because some people did go a little bit overboard, yes. But at the same time, still that initial, it wasn't like he was being like this overlord or bullying.
He wasn't
Um,
Injustice Superman, in other
Yes,
words.
he wasn't that. He was basically bullying bad guys. And I mean, who doesn't want to do that?
That's like when
So,
people were pissed off that Henry Cavill Superman destroyed the truck of that logger that was being very
exactly.
handsy with that waitress. I'm like, so Superman fans are defending are defending SA now. Great.
Yeah, it's really weird. Their complaints are it's ends up being hypocritical and a lot of double standards. But for this Superman, New 52 to really be balanced though, because he was still Clark Kent, but he was also Kal-El. And it's the fact that he is so knowing of his heritage though, that he was so ingrained in understanding it and accepting it. And he was really, for this dialogue right here, really excited for Diana to be a part of that. And that is something that you don't even see with Lois, with whether it's post crisis or currently. I mean, within the Batman and Superman book, I think Williamson and World Finest is that Batman knows more about Krypton and speaking in Kryptonese and everything like that more than Superman, the current Superman. And of course, because the current Superman, he is I'm only human. Krypton was a desolate place, so you know that kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. But for New 52, and like I said, it's not perfect. It went overboard some, but the idea was there. Is that
Yeah,
you have the balance of Superman and you explore the good and the bad of Krypton. And that's pretty
exactly.
much how you and that's pretty much how you make him a much more rounded character. It's not to say that Krypton is bad and like they love demonizing it. It's to show that Krypton was still a place that mattered at some point.
What would
It's
have been
kind of
kind of
like,
cool is if like if I were if during the new 52 they had a book separate from Superman that was just tales from Krypton and it was like stories of like Krypton.
yeah, especially with young Jor-El and Laura. It
Mm-hmm.
and more specifically Laura, because as she was a scientist and a general for the army, she was basically like, you know, uh, this is why, of course, I'm writing the story of her and Hippolyta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the how they are two mothers of these unique beings, but how they um, are so similar. And the thing is, Laura, her story is this very similar to Hippolyta's, as longing for motherhood, and really standing out.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the Kryptonian army and stuff like that, to really give her this character that she needs, because so often, in which was crazy that Rebirth reverted her back to just being like this quiet wife that cried on, Jor-El's shoulder. That's it. But with New 52, we were given stories that really showed that she was like just pretty much almost a better character than Jarrell. Like
In some
she,
ways, and she was a warrior. She was a badass.
yeah, she was far more adventurous and everything like that. And yeah, she did. And the thing is, how they made her was to basically, you know, um, of how Clark, why did he end up with Diana? Because his biological mother was the same way, you know,
Mhm.
is that's what attracted him to her. And
You may see that in the Shelterverse, but continuing on, I just wanted to tease that for the people. By the way,
a little plug.
I believe we talked about this cover when we were talking about Superman Wonder Woman covers, so you guys may see some returning favorites. So Barry and Hal get like crapped out of the portal in the middle of a battle on ancient Krypton. So the portal literally sent them back in time. And then, well, actually, first off, we get this dope scene. Whenever a lantern recharges his ring and says the oath, it is the coolest thing ever. And I like where Hal just sends out like 40 boxing gloves out and just punches everyone. Again, this is why I love Green Lantern, because there's moments like this. He do the oath, recharges the ring, and he's like, "Okay, let's punch some people. Let's do this."
I mean, I'm still, I guess, within that time of reading this, and I didn't just really take in the scenes and the detail, but now with us going over it, I am
Yeah.
really enjoying the details. And like, I honestly want this to be a movie.
Yes,
Like,
this
just
would be so dope.
this scene of the boxing gloves is kind of like, oh my God, it in my head, it's like, what if they animated this? But at the same time, WBDC does not have the budget for it.
No,
So it'll probably be
there's no
like
way they would do this.
five.
They'd probably have like one fist go throughout the crowd. But it's not only that.
Yeah.
He doesn't just do this in the boxing gloves come out. He smashes the ring into the ground like a badass. He's like, Green Lantern's light, and just sends out all the boxing gloves. And I'm like, yes. I got news for you, Brit. This is why I love Green Lanterns, for moments like this.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
to be able to conjure up anything, and that is some powerful stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then, and then he finds out he's on Krypton 250,000 years ago. And I love how he's like, oh boy, this isn't good. And then Diana's on Olympus, and it's essentially the gods fled, is what she heard. And the thing is like, so she's talking to the statue, and so it turns out, I believe she was also time displaced. So Hal, Barry, and Diana are time displaced. And at the same time,
and
again, actually, yeah, go ahead.
and not only time displaced, but it's also showing that the destruction of it within these certain times were caused by, it's not really a spoiler, but possibly Rao.
Hmm.
And it for him to basically transcend or whatever through all these time periods and cause destruction and you know even yeah, and what did I say earlier, even causing destruction for the Greek gods, that
Yeah,
is something that really, like, come on, how can you
if you want
not
to
want to
establish,
explore?
if you want to establish in storytelling, you want to do things to establish how big of a threat your big bad is. This is establishing, because if he can take out all of the Greek gods, it's one thing to take out Apollo because, again, Kryptonian and the sun, but all of them, when Kryptonians are vulnerable to magic, I'm sorry, that is really big. So,
And
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and also it's just showing the shared universe and how they can just come together. You don't really have stories where the Greek gods or any type of, you know, are actually, coming together. And
Hmm.
that was pretty much the first time we see that within Superman and Wonder Woman, when Apollo charged up Zod and Thor, or here where Rao, you know, destroyed Olympus, and it it's just really just a story on top of story, and the setup, and then you leave it on the table for going back to the same exact thing that they've been doing, and it's like that was the point of the reboot in the first place, was to bring something new. And with you being scared of that something new, it's like that is why you don't have that many fans, to this. They're not investing in anything because, again, this story is just one of the many that could have really showed how truly powerful individually and as a team, though, and the banter and the relationships of how the Justice League can be. And
Mhm.
they, even now, they don't really have a Justice League. I would say probably if you go back to maybe the Silver Age or something like that within the Justice League, or the Bronze Age or something. But
Mhm.
it's um but I think only Morrison, his Justice League maybe is the one that's basically like the golden standard, and then it's Jeff Johns, and then it's really no one's, and when you look at the individual characters too, the recommendations for these characters over a span of almost 100 years is only a selected stories out of decades of thousands, and that's really showing how DC has just
Drop the ball.
really, yeah, dropped the ball and neglected all the, creativity and just the ideas that could have made them the better. I mean, there was a first company, and then
Yeah.
you you basically just really shot yourself in the foot. And Marvel, and you've explained to me, Marvel is not perfect, but if they can, like, all of Marvel stumbles, they have that one shot of, now look at the X-Men, X-Men 97. All it took was,
Remy.
yes, yeah, that hurt me. All it took was 5 episodes of this animated show. And I mean, just Twitter, the general audience loves it, and everyone is now having more faith in Marvel. DC, on the other hand, is
You'll
kind of
see though.
like,
Wait. The live action movies have to start doing better in order
well,
for people to start to have some thing
that's true, but I'm just saying that it, for now, I would
for
say for
now.
now,
Hmm.
all it took was an animated show that's only 5 episodes in to really to draw in so many fans that may have been skeptical, or just bringing in new fans. And now within just this right now, Marvel and the X-Men books are, um going up,
Who
and
knows?
that's all it takes.
Yeah. So then we get more stuff about everyone becoming a Rao defender, because the
Follower.
other the yeah, the Rao worshiper. The other thing that Rao is doing is that all of a sudden, like, murderers are not like murdering repeat offenders and stuff. So what's interesting, so this gets into kind of the whole people's freedoms versus society being safe, if you will. Which, again, that's one of my favorite things that, like, the Civil War comic and movie deal with. It's like freedom versus security. Because here's the thing, yeah, this is creating a safer and more secure society, but it's also enslaving people. So what do you want here? You can't have one or the other. And see, this is how you do politics really well. Is you use that as an
Exactly.
analogy.
But it also, within the first Justice League, well, I think it was, I forgot the issue, but it's when Clark and Diana goes to a third world country and they're
Oh,
in disguise.
yeah, and then the terrorists are like, "Wait, how do we gain two hostages?" And then Superman and Wonder Woman are like, "Oh, hello."
Yeah, that this again is bridging that um where the Justice League is like on a tightrope, and
Hmm.
they don't know how far they can go into politics and stuff like that. But uh, this is another thing is that Diana is an ambassador. You know, she speaks to the UN, and Clark is a reporter. You know, that is what these characters supposed to um, really explore. Those kinds, these kinds of um, situations.
Hmm.
And for this to be one of them, I mean, yeah, Clark should be within this, and Diana definitely needs to be, you know, within this. And the whole, even her clashing, that this is pretty much the only thing that I would say was a negative between this story was wanting to see Diana and Rao clash. Like,
Yeah, because that would be cool. And then so Rao essentially helps an African nation. All of a sudden, they don't need, they're not starving anymore because it's all lush and stuff. This also gets back to, speaking of Grant Morrison's JLA, there was the very first arc was like the Hyper Clan show up and they go, "We're gonna solve all the world's issues," and then Clark goes, "Here's the problem. Here's why we never did that." Because then we have to keep solving your issues. It's not like it's not like we snap our fingers and everything's gone. This disrupts everything. And obviously the UN is pissed off about Rao involving it. And he goes, "No, I'm not going to stop until my work here is finished. I'm going to help people, help air quotes." And then Bruce talks to Clark and he goes, "Listen, dude, this this Rao thing doesn't really add up." And it's like, and then I love how even Batman goes, "I mean, I'm going to find out the truth of it. There was a time where you symbolized that, wasn't there? Truth." So I think, so what Batman is basically telling Clark is, you're thinking about this too emotionally about it being, oh my gosh, it's a Krypton thing, and not like, this is not all good, which it's what Clark would do because he's like, finally, there's someone like me here, but that person could be a threat, as Bruce says, which I
yeah,
dig.
I mean, this is showing Clark is a little bit, yeah, he is too trusting. He is a little naive, you know, but again, he is so like just excited about
Hmm.
Rao as being a part of Krypton. And that is the thing that, yeah, he is a little bit too naive and everything, but at least show some type of emotion and connection and excitement for something.
Yeah,
Whether it does turn out bad, it's still the fact of Clark, it shows that he is, you know, really wanting to hang on to Krypton and he really cares. You
yeah.
know, and that's
Again, it's showing respect to Krypton, which DC has barely ever done, except in the new 52. So that then we get another energy spike, and the Flash just plops back in because he was using the Speed Force, and he's like, "Oh gosh, I'm back." And then Hal is stuck on Krypton for for a long time. And turns out the Kryptonians that he is essentially captured by are like Rao's people. Oh man, oh god, of all the ads that could show up for DCU, look
right.
what
Ugh,
pops up. I'm like, oh no. At first I saw Tomasi and I was like, okay, maybe it's one of his good series. And then I saw Superman, Wonder Woman, and I'm like, nope, nope, that ain't good. Man, what are the odds of that showing up on this show?
yeah, yeah, the interview was so bland, and it just really showed how Tomasi, it's some things that it's kind of like he knew, you know, he he edited Kingdom Come.
Hmm.
So, and that just shows how long he's been within DC and knowing these characters. And well, obviously he should know the relationships. But for some reason, when some writers know the relationship, but they are like so wanting to, they have a preference and they let that preference overshadow their professionalism. And that's
Hmm.
basically what Tomasi did. Instead of, you know, trying to make the relationship work, um, as it was. And yeah, it was part of editorial too, but Tomasi, he really went overboard of trying to break their relationship and to a point where you had to turn them out of out of character
Yeah.
and
So.
make them antagonistic instead of, and even like with Clark, how his his reasoning of being mad at Diana was because she was being protective, which honestly, that that really gave like an insecurity of a man, and it's kind of like he wanted this macho type attitude. And
Which
then
is
you can
stupid.
see, yeah,
But
and then you can see the difference in his rebirth run
mhm,
when again how he was macho and you had Lois hanging over him and everything like that, and he's supposed to be like the head of the household type thing, and it's kind of like, no, Diana is not that. She is going to be equal head of the household,
exactly.
and just, yeah, just this skimming through this interview, I no.
Yeah, exactly. So then, Superman is essentially letting Superman is essentially having Cyborg check his blood because even Superman is like, am I like, am I like being like a little too trusting with Brown what's going on and stuff? So they're checking Superman's blood, and then again we get more of like Rao fixing the world's ailments, and Batman is even like putting one of Rao's like people in an MRI because he's trying to like ascertain what's going on with that. And then so Hal Jordan is brought to before Rao on Krypton, and it turns out like the people become Rao. In other words, so the battle that Hal and Barry was just like right into was a battle in the Kryptonian Civil War between the freedom fighters and Rao. So it's kind of interesting there because the way this is organized, this is kind of Green Lantern's first encounter with Rao. So because remember, he's not in the time period where Rao showed up. Rao had just shown up when he went back in time. So and again, Hal is like, so essentially like, um, Rao goes, I want to bring peace to Krypton, and Rao goes, well, what if they don't want peace? And then they go, then they must be where your power lantern. We must become your light. So it's kind of like he's like, then you'll fight them for me, and obviously that's not like working. And then what's interesting is like so the doctor that's running the MRI goes, the MRI is interesting, this area of the brain is slightly enlarged, so is his. And then Batman goes, that would make him. So he goes, what about his DNA? And then the person goes, that's even more fascinating, there are protein markers all over his DNA, meaning all basic human behavior is hardwired. I'd say we're being genetically rewired: cooperation, love, happiness, almost an ecstasy. Basically, I think we're being programmed to have a better life. So what Rao's light is doing is it's essentially mind control. He's like, he's turning people into like the devotees, and essentially pacifying the population so that they'll serve as batteries for his power, because the more devotees he has, the more powerful he becomes, which honestly, that's a really cool way to like to represent a god.
Yeah, but it's funny because it's kind of like Poison Ivy's like her pheromones or something like that, except his is with light and he's, in a sense, controlling people. That is such a cool power, honestly.
Mhm.
Like,
And then, by the way, we get a cameo from Mira.
yeah, our
And I
third
love where
favorite.
she goes, Arthur, did you really leave one of those prophets in Atlantis? And he's like, crap. He goes, no, I may have made a, I just made it. I made an enormous mistake. And then we see the Fortress of Solitude. And this is one of the rare times we get to see like all the cool stuff in the fortress. Like, obviously, we've seen the statue, but like the space shuttle and the like cruise ship, it's very all-star Superman because he had all this stuff in the fortress. And so again, this is when they start to realize what Rao is essentially doing, and that he's like attacking people and taking over. And then like one of the prophets goes to take out Batman because they see him as a threat. That's very smart. Anyone should see Batman as a threat. And so essentially what's kind of cool is that then Cyborg goes, okay, so the markers on your DNA are different, though. Different how? Even allowing for the difference in your DNA, the markers aren't new. This doesn't happen to you 2 weeks ago. It was bred into you. Bred? You mean my parents? I mean your whole species, your whole planet. Whatever did this to your DNA happened a very long time ago. So Kryptonians are like very different DNA-wise from humans for a specific reason. And it's kind of cool. What I like about this is handling the multiple timelines, I think, really well, because that's always like a danger when it comes to writing comics when you're dealing with like the future, the past, the future, the past, because it can get really confusing. And I think Hitch basically walks that line really well.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we see with this essentially, so what's happening here is like, all right, so essentially Rao absorbs the life force of all his devotees to remain young. In other words, he becomes young. In other words, he's essentially an energy vampire. That's what he is. And obviously Batman escapes. And then what's kind of funny is so Superman figures it out, and then Rao goes, "It would have been so much easier if you just believed." Dun dun dun. And by the way, I could with how many like religious allegories that Zack put in his movies, I could definitely see this being a Zack Snyder's Justice League movie.
Yeah,
Particularly his tendency to make 4-hour long movies.
that, and I mean just the, like I said, the bombastic type,
Wait.
the action scenes, you know.
Yeah, I have to skip, so we're gonna skip issue 5
Yeah,
because
issue 5.
I was wondering, because here's the thing, Brit. So the trade says it collects issues 1 through 4 and 6 through 10. So I'm like, wait a minute, where's 5? And then I looked at it and I'm like, 5 has nothing to do with what's going on in JLA.
And this is where it starts to get wonky for, I would say, this book and editorial, and trying to um start with the rebirth and just all of that. It's so weird to have this like random issue of Martian Manhunter in a story that basically it has nothing to do with anything.
I know, it's weird. It's like I almost opened it up, but then I was like, wait a second. John Jones never showed up in this story. But then I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. And again, it was confusing because I'm like 1 through 4, then and then 6 through 10, and I'm like, I'm confused.
Right, and even with the story, just with saying that Martian Manhunter was within the Justice League, it's kind of like, again, we do not see that. He was with Steve Trevor's.
Well, we kind of get a little hint of it in Jeff Johns' Justice League, where like they show the last time that we tried to expand the league, it didn't turn out that well, and then you see the Martian Manhunter fighting the entire Justice League.
Yeah, but it's still just the fact of
It
it's
happening off
like,
screen.
yeah, it's like, so these writers, what they wanted was, it's a reboot. and it's like a clean slate. Of course, Batman. Honestly, the complaint that Batman and Green Lantern had their history. I mean, Batman is what sells, and Batman can be as old as dirt, you know, and it's fine. Um, Green Lantern, it's more than just Hal Jordan. That's the thing. The Lantern Corp is like it's multiple characters, so that's fine. Um, but everyone else, they can be they can be young, and you need to start over, because those are the characters that were in a very, very bad place, especially Superman and Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
And again,
Particularly Wonder Woman.
yeah, her book at that time, with Tom Tresher, with
And to be clear, I liked that Wonder Woman book, except for Amazon's attack, because objectively, that is one of the most horrible war crimes ever perpetuated on Wonder Woman. But the point is, like, her book was good. It's just, again, and we said this on on the Catwoman stream earlier today, is that the thing about Wonder Woman is that really she didn't get mainstream love and attention until Gal Gadot played her. So thank you, Zack Snyder.
it's the fact that her book though is more so of a self-insertion for either, well, at that time, of course, Twitter wasn't a thing as it is now, but that's pretty much what it is, you know, is the problem with Superman and Wonder Woman. You are so focused on likes and having these moments of like not even making the fans, quote unquote, um mad or anything. It's just the fact of like pandering to a certain demographic that of course has not supported the books, hasn't
Well,
bought
they
the
claim
books.
to support the book, but they really pirate the books.
Yeah, they pirate the books, but then they talk like they are buying the books. And these writers, they pander to that, and they continue to try to, you know, they try to, what am I trying to say? Uh, pet them.
Yeah,
And
they appease them, in other words.
yeah, and you get to a point where any complaint, you know,
Hmm.
it
Is
feels
seen
like
as like you're not a real fan.
exactly. And then on another side is that, like with Williamson, he actually admitted it. He said that when when you give fans what they want and they're happy, they don't buy the books. It's like, well, duh.
Hmm.
Even though that is a backwards thing because you would think that if you want it, you will buy it. But for some reason, it's more so the controversial things that will actually get the sales up and keep them up. So it's kind of like, yeah, even though Superman and Wonder Woman, which I still just don't know why is it controversial, but given that it was controversial, it sold, it was successful, it brought in new fans, and it actually did raise Superman and Wonder Woman's characters.
Yep.
And
More on that later. And by the way, some more awesome Green Lantern love there. I haven't read that book. I should check that out. So then we get some cool Joe Mad Superman art with the JLA. I love this. I love this cover. It's really, really cool. And then so I love Arthur. He just goes, "Get out of my city," because he's converting Atlanteans to Rao, and then they start attacking him like zombies, and I'm like, yes. And a lot of this. Here's why I love this book. Everything is like so epic and bombastic. I mean, look, they're even attacking Themyscira. Oh, another thing, Rao's people have been on Themyscira. So you're telling me this didn't happen?
oh my God, okay.
I'm like, wait, I literally just realized that. I'm like, wait a second, Rao's people have been on
See,
Themyscira.
I mean, this, okay, now the details of this book, I did not realize that. Now the details of this book is
Oh
kind of
my
like
gosh.
you are really, first of all, yeah, that just shows how Rebirth, and we'll get back into that later. How Rebirth is, so many people thought that Rebirth was this perfect, like, well planned out sort of thing. But
What plan? That's
yeah,
like when
but
Warner Brothers claimed to have a plan after they kicked Zack to the curb.
you see the discrepancies, the plot holes, and everything like that. And now, like I said, rereading this book, you have the Atlanteans, you have the mascara, and the whole world, you know, with within this whole war, with Rao. And it's kind of like, wow, you are actually put showing the shared universe really being impacted with what's going on here. And yeah, this is what you need. So yeah, I don't know why they have not, you know, adapted this when you have everything right here.
Yeah, I just love. Okay, so wait a second. I would love to show this to Greg Rock. I'm like, so Wonder Woman's never been home. So you tell me this didn't happen? Like, you're telling me everything's canon now. So Wonder Woman has been home, but she hasn't. None of this makes sense. And
Yeah.
and that's the thing about Rebirth. Yes, maybe it fixed some things, but it royally screwed up other stuff. And I like, so Superman is fighting all of Rao's devotees. He's trying to like, obviously Superman is pulling his punches because Superman can like punch their heads off. But I love, and this is how much I love New 52 Superman. He beats all these guys. He goes up to Zod. I almost call him Zod again, Brit. He goes up to
I'm
Rao
sorry.
and goes, "Is that the best you got?" And I was like, I love the sass of New 52 Superman. And honestly, you know what's kind of funny? He kind of looks like Henry Cavill.
He does.
It looks like they're trying to tell us something. Alzheimer's never. And then Rao just punches them that far out. And I'm like, again, if he could punch Superman that far out, I'm like, wow. Again, you're establishing how big of a threat Rao is. Because if he can look at, if he, first off, stupendous art. I mean, just the sheer level of destruction and epicness of this is fantastic. But if someone can body Superman this bad, Superman, and destroy all the Greek gods, this is kind of like a, what do we do now? It's hopeless.
I mean, this is so much more like, even with using dark side so many times repeatedly, it becomes, like, okay, yeah, we know he's either going to retreat or they are going to defeat him, but it just feels like the impact is just not felt anymore when they keep repeating. This is something actually new that, and right here, I would have brought Diana back here with the mascara being attacked.
Oh,
She would have, you know, came back at that point and defended the mascara.
what you could do is have it so she shows up at this moment, like Rao's gonna punch Superman, and then his like arm stops, and Rao's like, the heck is going on? And then Diana's like holding him and goes, "Please stop punching my boyfriend."
Something like that. Yeah, that would have been really just to bring her back into the fight. And
I got it. And then Diana goes, "Cal may not be used to fighting gods, but I am."
yeah. And Rao also just feels her power as she is a demigoddess.
Yeah, and the red sun is not gonna affect Diana, so she's basically like, okay, so let's go, and she like, I think she could take Rao, but it's like all that destruction, and Superman's like, I really wish you could have. Superman, Rao was like, I mean, I'm having an off night tonight. Rao was like, I really wish you could have believed, and then Barry wakes up in the Infinity Corporation, then it's kind of interesting. You see all these like stones are like essentially the stones of forever, like sentient, like stones, I guess, and they bring you like stuff you need. And what's kind of interesting about them, it's like essentially they keep coming back and they were warning people of Rao. That's why they kept bringing back the Supermen. And then we see Diana. She's still on Olympus, and then essentially Arthur is like Arthur is battling on Atlantis. And what's actually kind of cool is that he ends up on Olympus, and then he goes, "Oh, hey Diana, what's going on?" And then they fight the devotees. I almost said Zod devotees. Oh my gosh, I'm really struggling here. And then boosh, everything blows up, and they just leave it there. And I love this. And then you have Hal Jordan flying besides Rao, and they're still like, and what's kind of funny is I love where like, so essentially Hal Jordan's ring goes, a source of temporal interference located, and it's the temporal interference is why Hal can't just portal back to his time. So Hal goes, where is it? It's like present location, and then Hal goes, what are the odds of that being a coincidence that he's being brought to like the source? And then I love the ring. The ring's like calculating, and then Hal goes, don't. He's basically going, that was rhetorical. But it was kind of funny. You know, it's kind of I was reading a little bit of the Rebirth Green Lanterns run. Again, Green Lantern is the only good Rebirth book, and like Jessica Cruz's ring actually calls her Jaybird. Like it actually has a little bit more of a personality instead of being like a robot. I love it. It's so funny. And then the Infinity Corporation building just appears. And I'm like, again, see, this book has fantastic cliffhangers because I'm like, what?
I mean, it can be. That's why I said this can be.
Oh no! Oh, it's Superman! This is happening twice. Why does this keep happening to me?
And you know, within that interview, how Jurgen said that Lois and Clark are living double lives. It's kind of like Lois is not a hero. She's not
living a double. Wait, it's like she's not living a double life. If
right.
anyone was living a double life, read the Superman and Wonder Woman book. By the way, I love how this cover is basically an homage to Justice League 1.
Yes.
It's so good. And again, I love all these cover things. I'm like the coming of the Superman. Oh boy. But I mean, it's drawn by Neil Adams, so I kind of like that. And it's got our new. Wait. I was about to say it's got the new 52 Superman, but then I saw he has trunks, and I'm like, I wonder what was this series.
It honestly, it was kind of forgettable. It was during the time when DC was kind of dredging up, like older pitches.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was one of them. So I don't really know the story, but I know it was very retro. It was very
not bad. And then we have the adult coloring book variant cover. So I guess you can actually color this. So it's not a bad idea. So Batman brings the staff to Cyborg, and then they're like analyzing it, and then it turns out it's Cyborg essentially like hacks it into the staff, and he goes, it's a node of sorts connected to something else, channels information, energy both to and from a source, probably the cathedral or something. I'm sure he's following the signal, and then he sees a massive download of information. Then what he sees is like technology. The technology is incredible. It's terraforming, healing, stuff about genetic modification. There you go. Technology is so advanced it could be magic. There you go. The prophets connect to each person, change them, and connect them to this network. Because I'm seeing something else. It's Rao. He's walking into some large circle, some sort of standing stones. Those stones that we saw earlier. I can't get a read on them. Don't know what they what they are, but the whole network, all of the connections to all those lives follow right into it and into Rao. So essentially, again, it's feeding him with energy. And that's kind of what those stones are. They're energy transference devices, which is kind of cool. You see, there's a Marvel writer here. By the way, I love how much like Christian Bale Batman looks in this panel. I just noticed that.
Honestly, Superman and Batman, definitely Henry Cavill and Christian Bale. Like
Yeah.
that was. It seems like those two were Hitch's inspiration.
Which I'm fine with because both were fine inspirations. So I like so it's kind of cool. Is like so Olympus is rebuilt, and then Arthur goes, "Did you do this?" And then Diana's like, "I am Olympus." And I'm like, "Okay, that's actually kind of cool." He goes, "The gods broke Olympus and fled. They said they knew what was coming." And then he goes, "Rao." And then one of them goes, "Maybe, but I think something else, something that terrified them." And he goes, "You're still here." He goes, "I wasn't invited to go with them. I woke up here after the attack on Parasite." So essentially, remember, he wasn't like there in the whole battle. And he goes, "We all were, Arthur. You were invited." He goes, I wasn't invited." Well, I guess how were you going to receive an invitation if you live under water? And then it's like, so they go, "Okay, so I'm the only one left here in Olympus. So let's arm ourselves." And I'm like, "Okay, this is going to be really cool. It's going to be really cool." So essentially, they're trying to find. The cathedral is over New York, and somehow the Marvel universe does not notice because every superhero is in New York apparently. So essentially, what it's kind of interesting is Superman's being tortured by Rao, and again, Rao is trying to convert Superman, and even Superman's now like, "You're not a god." He goes, "I am Rao." He goes, "You're a man, probably a very clever man. You've been living off your followers for how many years? Thousands of years." And he goes, "They all believe in me. They live a better life because of me." He goes, "It's a lie all about it." And then Rao goes, "I built all this, the church of billions, a church that lasted 250,000 years. All of those who joined us had richer lives." And he goes, "And if they don't join you, they all do. Eventually, they all do one way or another." So it's like the Borg resistance is futile here. So again, so Zod is Brit Rao is basic. This is gonna be a running thing throughout this entire episode. Rao is a parasite, pun intended. Jeez. And what's kind of cool is like Superman goes, tell them all the truth and see how many of them convert. Tell them you're shortening all their lives for your own sake. Again, he's like like batteries essentially. Tell them you take their lives so you can live longer. What's kind of cool is like he's like Rao. I almost said Zod. Rao goes, "I have brought peace to your world. None of your heroes have managed that. That's a point. I have healed the sick and fed the hungry. The world is better for my blessings. Would you take all that away? Is that what you want your legacy to be?" And again, this kind of gets into what Superman has said in the JLA Grant Morrison run. He's like, "Yeah, we could solve your issues, but at what cost?" And it was kind of funny. This is basically a better version of Injustice. Hear me out, because again, Rao is basically being the Injustice Superman. He's saying, "No, I've made people's lives better. They're safer. They just have to submit to me." And R. Clark is basically like, "Yeah, but at what cost? They're losing their freedoms. They're losing their lives. They're losing what makes them human." And I'm just like, this is so cool.
And not only that, but it's like the Rao wants them to be dependent on him, you
Yeah.
know, and that is what basically the line that the Justice League walks. Is like some things, and this was even said in Wonder Woman 800, that Clark, he says that he has a difficult time with, making decisions on, okay, what can he let happen, what can he prevent. It's like it's some things that he has to let happen, but it's like he still feels guilty if he knows that he could have, stopped it. And yeah, that is a very conflict that all the Justice League members should have, and something that should be explored with all of them, because it's a mental and emotional type um thing that, yeah, you know um if they do everything, why are there still policemen or
Yeah.
firefighters, or they have to let them do something.
In fact, guess what? This reminds me of Justice League 12. We're not like the gods. And here's the thing: when you think about it, that can be like Wonder Woman, like saying, "Yeah, we don't fit in there," but it could also be like Wonder Woman telling them that we have to be better than the gods were, because the way Rao is acting, this is how the Greek gods have acted in the past. So essentially, yes, the Justice League are basically modern day gods, but they're essentially saying, yeah, we'll protect you, but the rest is up to you. That's it.
Right,
That's where we have to
right.
do things. And then so then we see another row. So apparently the different timelines are converging. And man, DC with their other timelines, I'm like, oh geez. So I'm just like, you can't make this any more confusing. But moving on. So then so the younger Rao, actually what's kind of cool is the younger Rao is basically trying to take over from the older Rao, because again he's older. He goes, I have forged my will over many thousands of years. Yours is that of an infant. I will convert Krypton, then I will finish what I started a quarter of a million years from now. So this is the same Rao from now, but he traveled in the past through those stones. And I'm like, okay, at least they kind of are using him as like a through line through the different timelines.
Yeah, that when I first saw this kind of confused me, but
Mm-hmm. Time
yeah,
travel will do that to you, Brit.
yeah, but the of course it would be the younger Rao. He's like you said earlier, he's like a energy like vampire or whatever, or now he's basically parasite, which is again very very cool, because you have Parasite, which is an Earth villain for Superman, or with this story he became a greater threat in a sense. And then you have combine that with Rao too. So you are really putting in more character, more like emphasis on these worlds. I honestly, when I first read this story, you skim through it, and then years have passed, of course, so you forget the details. But seeing like all these different, worlds coming together, and well, not of
Timelines.
their own, um, not of their own accord, the Atlantis and Themyscira, it is still the fact of it's a great war. Like
Mhm.
you're having a world war,
So,
and
so you could
everyone is
say
involved.
so you could say, Brit, our worlds are at war.
Yeah, but you have the Atlanteans, you have Themyscira, you have in basically, Krypton, all at war. That is not a story that, should be swept under the rug.
No, it's epic. If anything, this would see. Here's the thing, James Gunn. This would be a Superman story that no one's seen in movies before. And here's the thing: I would even be fine if you bring in the Justice League, because at least it'd be the Justice League people care about, and not like he's essentially bringing in the Justice League that got their asses kicked by Doomsday. But if you bring in this, and like, because here's the thing: if you have the god tier Justice League, and they're getting bodied by like Rao. I mean, look at this. Even Hal Jordan is like, okay, until I figure this out, I'm going to bring you in. And then Rao just grabs his hand with the lantern ring and goes, nope, you're not. He's just holding the hand with the ring, and Hal is powerless. He's holding back the willpower of a Green Lantern. That's how
Yeah,
powerful this guy is.
yeah.
they keep doing the proper ways of establishing how much of a threat this guy is, because he basically just takes out Green Lanterns. And I love, so Diana, she's so obviously, again, it's so Ares is dead, she's the god of war, and she's in his armory. You see a bunch of World War II tanks, and then you see she arms up with like the weapons of the gods, and she even gives them like Poseidon's trident, which looks eerily like the one in the Snyder cut, which I happen to have up there. So I'm like, there you go. I love that. And she, of course, she grabs Zeus's lightning bolt because she is the daughter of Zeus. She will use that later in such a really cool way. And then she grabs Hades' helmet, which makes her invisible. And so the building is vibrating again, and then we see that that essentially Rao is basically like, okay, I'm done. I gave you a chance to believe. Your world embraced me, but you won't. So we could have saved the world together, Superman. So you know what? I'm done. We're not going to like I'm not playing anymore. And I love how Superman is like, he's like flexing, and then I love how Rao goes, I told you couldn't break free, and Superman goes, I'm not trying to. He's flying, and he's flying the cathedral to the moon. Again, how could you see this and not love New 52 Superman?
Yeah, being so, and again, a lot of the naysayers, I mean, saying that he's not powerful, that he's, he doesn't care, he's selfish or anything like that. Okay, first of all, it shows that he bench pressed basically like the weight of 5 Earths in the Superman book. And now here he is like flying this giant, like, you know, building spaceship thing into the moon. So it's kind of like, how can you say this? But again, answering my own question, they never read.
Yeah, I know. If you actually read the stuff, you're like, oh, and this is something that their Superman would do. So it's not like it's like a new thing, because yeah, Superman has been pretty powerful. Like again, one of the most powerful. One of the most like well-known Superman panels is him pulling a solar system on a chain, and I'm like, you know what? This is kind of a more realistic version of that. And it's the thing again. I love how Rao thought you can't escape. He goes, no, who said I was trying to escape? I'm just trying to move your cathedral. And what's kind of interesting, this could kind of be like seen as an Easter egg of when the Justice League used to have their base on the moon, and then Superman just crashes it into the moon. I'm just like, yeah, that is pretty bad. Oh, Zack Snyder statues. Yay. You can never have too much Zack Snyder merch.
And also within that issue, you
Yeah.
have the BVS recommendations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the funny thing that Superman and Wonder Woman Volume 1 was recommended, of course, because Doomsday showed up. But it was so funny when DC posted it and everyone was like, just that thing of, oh, like it was that they will bring in the romance there. And of course, DC cowered out and deleted the tweet because, I mean,
Oh my God.
honestly, it's it's like, I guess they didn't want to I guess false advertise in a way of that. No, it's not just the romance, but it's kind of like, okay,
Then
even if
why
it's,
put the book on? Just grab a different
yeah,
Doomsday book. He's showing up more than New 52. It's
yeah, but
it's
they
really weird. It's
yeah, just the way, I would say that 2015, 2016,
a weird time for DC.
was a very weird time because they just, any little thing, they were very reactionary, and also just trying to, and we saw it, erase anything that had to do with Superman and Wonder Woman to prop up Lois and Clark. And it's just like, yeah, all of that aged like milk, and it backfired
Yeah.
pretty much.
How's that working for you, Tomasi? Anyway, moving on, and then we get an advertisement for Earth One, which actually pretty solid books. And then I like this recreation of like the Neil Adams cover with Ra's al Ghul. I dug that. So then what's kind of interesting is like, so then you see like the cathedral's destroyed, and I love this because Superman is fighting Rao, and he is like, I love, he's screaming at Rao and blasting with heat vision. I'm like, this made me fall in love with New 52 Superman, because he is just not only that, he is blasting his heat vision into Rao's eyes, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And again, Zach recreated all this stuff in BVS, and they're like fighting, and Superman goes, "This ends now." And then, of course, yeah, go ahead.
You have a whole epic fight of Superman fighting a Kryptonian god. And it's so much more than the one trick pony of him fighting Doomsday. It's not just an all out blow for blow physical fight. It's more than that, because especially with the fact of Clark's mental, challenge of, this is the god of my home planet, and he ends up, basically being evil, and I have to fight him. And that is so much of a mental, like, conflict that he has. And again, this is something totally new that we've never seen before. And it goes beyond just the physical fighting.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of that, as opposed to like Doomsday being just being a fight of like just punch the guy, Superman actually can't punch Rao, because Rao is still connected to all the people that he had already converted. So all the pain that Superman is inflicting on Rao is being inflicted on the people too. So
The
again,
stakes are just going high.
and this is how you write. This is how you do Superman, when like you're like, he's too powerful, I don't know what to do. Do this. This is really simple. He can't punch him. This is not hard. You just have to know what books to grab. And I'm like, to your point, this could have been an original Superman movie, because he can't just punch his way out of this.
Yeah, even if he does, the physical part of the fighting, it's still the fact of, yeah, you can really feel the stakes here. And for, again, the naysayers to say, like, there's no stakes with Clark and Diana being together, or or things are being easily solved. No, especially when you compare this to even the recent Superman stories, they really just do not have that psychological fight in them. It's
they
just
don't.
it's just the basic physical fighting, everyone accepting Superman. It's all, maybe one or two people are in danger, mostly Lois, and he goes berserk to, save her, and that's it. The day is saved, and you just repeat the same thing. Yeah, I don't know when the last time an actual psychological Superman story was. It was probably in the early 2000s of post-crisis, but yeah.
Yeah.
And
so Superman is like beating the crap up, and then Diana shows up, and I love this. She goes, "Pretender, I'm gonna show you what war with a god really looks like." And I'm like, yes. Again, how could you not like this version of Wonder Woman? This is so badass. And she like blasts him, and then of course I like she didn't know about the whole followers thing. So Arthur's like, stop, you're gonna hurt anyone. And then I like how Diana goes, what? I have him. And then Rao goes, you have nothing. And they just blast her with heat vision. Then he just blasts it like a clock. And then this is like, Really, really, really dope. I mean, epic action scenes, and so they're fighting. And what I like about this is like Superman had his own contingency plan. He basically goes he flashes back, and when Rao says, "Is that what you want your legacy to be?" It turns out Bruce had been in Clark's ear, going, "Clark, I hope you can hear me. It's Bruce. Victor has your location, right? We're transmitting directly to you. Rao should only hear it if he's listening for it, and we're going to hope he doesn't. We have a plan. We need you to keep Rao busy. I don't know if you're hurt. I don't know if you're even hearing this, but there's anything you can do to beat him up. We just need an hour." And then the plan is like sprung, and it turns out it's what they do is they teleport everyone to those stones, and Parasite absorbs all of the energy from Rao and gets super big. And obviously they also have to kind of stop Parasite because he's going to absorb the life force from the people. But yeah, Parasite is getting really, really, really built up. And then the fight continues, and then they basically get him within range of the stones, and the stones like send out a pulse that like takes out that injures Rao, depowers Parasite, and then Superman is dead. And I'm like,
Dun, dun, dun.
yeah, again, these cliffhangers are like, what? Oh, here's that reading list. Yes, the power couple's right there.
Yep.
Wow. Dark Knight Returns, Superman, Batman. Yeah, all of this is like great stuff. I can't believe it. Oh, by the way, everyone complaining about Lex Luthor, it's from the comics. Shut up.
But also the thing is, Injustice being there is kind of like,
well, Nightmare Superman is kind of there. Even though here's the thing. Here's another way you could fix Injustice. Make it Superman was under the anti-life equation the whole time. So you could have done that. That's funny. Zach keeps providing solutions to a lot of DC's weak-ass stories. Wow. And then there you go, interviewing with Ben Affleck. Oh, man, I love this. See, this is the other thing I love the news from 52 is that it flashes back when I was optimistic about DC movies. Man, remember those days? Oops, I have to go all the way back. Spoiler alert, everyone. So, and by the way, Jim Lee BVS variant cover. So there you go. I want this. I'm going to try and find this variant cover because obviously I collect anything that has to do with the Snyderverse. And so essentially Rao is being overloaded. And what they're trying to do is I think that they're trying to like separate him from his followers so they can start beating the crap out of him. Back on Krypton in the ancient city of Argo, and I believe, if I remember correctly, Argo is where Kara's from, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of cool. And then Hal is being held in a prison cell, and both Raos are like talking about they're gonna like conquer. And so what happens next is Rao shows up and he goes, "I need to see these Forever Stones." And then what's kind of So then Rao was talking to Hal Jordan and it's kind of funny. Here's how they tell you Hal's been here for a long time. He's got a beard. Apparently he's been gone for 2 weeks. Wow. 2 weeks without shaving. Oh man, that sucks. Because when I was growing my beard, it gets very itchy at a certain point when you're growing a beard. Trust me. Like, wow. And then so essentially I believe this version of Rao is actually trying to help Hal. He's like, listen, this is the older Rao, and he's like, this other me is actually evil right now, so you have to help me out. And then he's like, but I'm just one guy. And he goes, a single drop of water can erode mountains, my friend. One man can defeat the wills, emphasis on wills, of many. Willpower, Hal Jordan. And then obviously Rao wants to convert the Flash. He wants all the Justice Leaguers. And then it was kind of I like this moment where Flash is fighting Rao, and he goes and Rao goes, none have defied me. He goes, really? try this for defiance. He punches someone. He goes, so you're a Kryptonian, huh? There's no yellow sun here, bro. And by the way, he looks just like Grant Gustin there. Everyone's looking like the popular versions of the characters at the time.
Yeah.
And so essentially what's happening is that the stones in each of these timelines are linked together. And that's how these three different versions of Rao are linked. And then, so, and obviously also Helm essentially goes, okay, so I need to focus. Something big is happening here. It feels like a focus has shifted, like Rao's will is elsewhere. Drop of water, there you go. Because what happens, the other thing Rao was doing is he was like focusing on Hal's mind and keeping him from focusing, because he obviously has to focus to use the ring. And Hal goes, okay, his attention somewhere else. Now I can charge my ring. Then we find out that Diana has been performing CPR on Clark for 15 minutes. And by the way, I just realized this. She is the only one that could possibly do like CPR in Superman. So she's been doing it for 15 minutes. And I love where she goes, where Bruce goes, Diana, it's been 15 minutes. And she goes, I don't care. I'm not letting him go. And I'm like, this is a way better version of Final Days of Superman as well.
Yeah, it's Final Days. I mean, that was emotional, and to really see that was the final days, that they were really killing off, New 52 Superman. But Diana's thing is, her dialogue and everything is always, it has so much more depth. Like within Final Days, when she said that your parents, they are all waiting for you, is the fact that she is the one that continues to see Clark and Cal equally, that she, makes sure to acknowledge, every side of him as
Mhm.
equal parts.
Mhm.
Then, with Death of Superman, I mean, it honestly, it's a blow for blow, macho type, just mindless action story. It really, Doomsday is a creation of Krypton, yeah, but at the same time, he's just like a troll monster, like a mindless troll monster that has no depth. And it really, the only impact is killing Superman, but he's going to come back. And the fact of that the Justice League that went against Doomsday was like the quote unquote C-listers.
Yeah,
And,
because actually the thing is, the Justice League back then was the book that you put characters that couldn't sell their own books.
oh, I didn't know that little detail. So,
It was the same thing with the Avengers, because at the time Marvel and DC did not take their team books seriously. So the idea was like, okay, if we put Batman in a book and then put like a bunch of C and D listers with him, people will show up because it's a Batman book. And it's the same thing for Marvel. It took Bendis when he was at Marvel to revitalize the Avengers, and Morrison at DC to revitalize the Justice League, for them to finally take these books seriously.
well, that really, honestly, those little details is why, when people act like it's always been this way, a certain way,
No,
and like
no.
the Justice League has just been there forever or whatever like that. And then when you get to that detail that no, everything, it's a shame that, like I said, these characters are almost 100 years old, but within the context of them though, and the stories that they have are a selected few, and it's just the trying to put the teams together and everything, it still has like that, it's just a recent idea, kind of like the Trinity. The Trinity, they try to make it seem like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman has just been besties for, you know, since they started the shared universe, but it hasn't been like that. The concept started in Kingdom Come, and it really hasn't been anything, solid. They've tried Trinity books and they've never succeeded, and now it's just more so of a marketing thing.
Hmm.
And it,
Exactly.
and it feels like that's what the Justice League is too. It's just a marketing. They don't feel like friends or a family. And it pre post crisis, they did have the family feel and all these characters interacting and stuff like that, but apparently there was something missing, or it became dull, that they needed a reboot. And now DC is going back to that, with all these families, and again it's dull. It's like you're trying to
And
grasp at
again,
something.
and again, it's like the stupid. Why does anyone commit crime in a city with 5 Kryptonians?
Right. So back to this story.
Yeah.
um yeah, with this scene, it shows how powerful Diana is. It shows the love that she has for Clark, and it shows, you know, the not giving up. And it's just an epic scene that she revived him,
Wait,
you
wait.
know.
So it turns. So at first he's like, at first they're like, no, he's gone. Then she takes the thing of Zeus and goes, no, and because the idea is that the explosion from the previous issue stopped his heart, so she literally resuscitates him, and he goes, okay. He's like, did we get? And of course, Superman's first thoughts are, did we get him? And then I love this. Everyone's like, yeah, Superman's back, and Batman's like, wonderful, like emotionless because he's Batman. I just love that. Oh my gosh, I love that.
And then Diana says, "You're back," and he says, "I heard you."
Hmm.
That just little moments right there really, again, it's a very um prominent moment of this, that i- if shown live action or animated, it would be a very emotional scene, and it really showcase um Diana, just like Wonder Woman 175. I can't believe they haven't even adapted that. There are so many wonderful moments for Diana that should have been adapted a, a long time ago. You had Wonder Woman Bloodlines, and instead of you what Tucker did was basically take like the basics of post crisis and try to mix in Rebirth too.
With a new 52 Wonder
Sort
Woman, and
of,
I'm like,
yeah.
kind of, and I'm like, again, according to Atchison, it just doesn't work, and it's really really weird. But and by the way, Britt, I just got an idea for our little project. I'm not going to tell you about it until we stop recording, so just so you can stew there, because I'm getting points here. So
Hilarious.
continuing on. Oh, you doubt me? Oh, do not doubt me. So now Krypton has been brought within view of Earth, and it's kind of interesting here because now the Kryptonian army is now invading Earth. Obviously, Hal is energized, and then the final battle is about to begin. And oh boy, this is so cool. And by the way, here's the image here. Wait, hang on. Here's the
Oh,
image here that I said looks like it'd be directed by Zack Snyder. Look at Wonder Woman's massive guns. I'm like, yeah,
I,
I'm like, that would be hilarious. She's the god of war, so of course she would use guns. But imagine the Twitter response if Wonder Woman used guns.
well, I mean, she did show with the new 52, I think that was Arrow's, yeah,
Hmm.
Arrow's guns.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's not something that she hasn't done before. It's just here is very dramatic and, just over the top. Um, but within the last issue, that very last page of showing the Justice League, you have everyone looks like their live action iteration. You have
Wait, I have to see that. I have to go back. I have to go back. Okay, so back. Where is this? Here. Okay, last page of issue 9. So let me go there. All right, and
well, it's the maybe that's the third. Third to the last.
oh, here we
Okay.
go.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
they do
have
kind of. Oh my gosh.
so you have Cavill, you have Gal, but kind of Affleck and
You
Bale, but mostly Bale. Then you have Grant
yeah.
and
Obviously not Momoa.
yeah, obviously, uh, sort of Ray,
It's too
for
far
Cyborg.
away to like determine if it's Ray, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's really funny. And so Kryptonians are invading. This also kind of reminds me of another story that Brit and I are working on. More on that later. So it's the Kryptonians versus the Justice League, and I like how like to keep them from getting out, how literally created a construct around the entire. You create a planetary shield around Krypton, and I like how the ring is saying projecting a full planetary shield may be possible but unstable. Warning: multiple Kryptonian warriors attempting to breach the shield. Approximately 250,000 enemy contacts. And then I love how Riggs, please stop nagging me and find me the Justice League. Again, anyone that doesn't like Hal Jordan hasn't read Green Lantern. And I like how he shows up and then he's like, okay, so I love where they're like, Green Lantern, where were you? And he goes, held prisoner on Krypton, except that's ancient Krypton up there. And there's a couple of 100,000 warriors up there putting on my shield, and they all will worship a guy named Rao. And he goes, yeah, we know that. You're kind of late. I just, and again, I love this. And they're acting like a family, because that was like a complaint that like a lot of people had with New 52 Justice League, is that they happen to be like just people around there and it didn't really feel like a family. Arguably, as the series went on, they started to feel more like a family, but still.
and I mean they were young. What are
Mhm.
they, how were they supposed to act? They are. Diana was 23. So that say so really the only ones that were older was Batman and Hal.
Mhm.
But everyone else was in their early to mid 20s. You have this, yeah, they might have egos a little bit, but it's nothing that really just made them um just too antagonistic. It's not like how Tomasi did. It
Oh
was
yeah.
very much just, these heroes that want to be, you know, just they had to figure out how to trust each other.
Mhm.
And yeah, like I said, with this book, that could have been it. That could have been where you see the more fleshed out type, unity that they gained over
I love
the
that. So
over
Britt,
the time.
remember earlier when Batman told Cyborg to access those contingency files?
Yeah.
Well, now we get to see the resolution of that. The pods launch, and so the League goes to go fight the Kryptonians, and giant mech suits land. So literally, it's a Bat mech and a Cyborg mech, and they're gonna go fight Kryptonians. And oh my gosh, if this would be so badass! And I love where Cyborg goes, "Just remember, you're not indestructible," and then Batman goes, "I always do." I
I mean
love that.
I mean
Yeah, go
this
ahead. Mhm.
just the whole thing of them fighting is, yeah, just it's such an epic, like, this wasn't an event book, but it feels like it.
It should have been, honestly. That would have been really cool if this was the event, War for Krypton. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how much of a clickbait title that is?
Yeah, that would have been something.
And look, Diana's like bodying all of them because they're still vulnerable to magic, and she has like Zeus's lightning bolt. She goes, "Yeah, yeah, the lightning bolt's working." I love that. And then I love how willpower is a magic all of its own. He's just blasting people with green energy. And I'm like, yeah, this, because you know what's kind of funny? They're fighting essentially an army of Supermen. And like they're actually holding their own really well. And it's actually really cool. And then younger Rao and older Rao are essentially like going to go fulfill their plan. The Kryptonians are still like attacking. It's because they're getting stronger because the sun is rising. And yeah, that's not going to turn out very well when the full sun rises. And then Superman says, "Focus on Rao. If we take them out, we take out their power source." And then we get essentially now the League essentially hatches a plan to like stop to like disconnect Rao from his like followers, so they could actually attack Rao. And I love Arthur. Arthur goes, "Poseidon's gone now, but this is his trident. This makes me god of the oceans, and those behind you, those are my damn horses." And he makes seahorses and water, and he just swallows the Kryptonian army. I'm like, good lord, this is amazing. Like, Hitch knows how to draw stuff so it looks bombastic, but not too bombastic. In other words, essentially he's drawing gods. And you know what? Man, he understood the assignment. Because look at this.
Yeah.
I barely see the Justice League drawn this powerful. This is another reason why I like the new 52, because they were treated like freaking gods. And I like where Superman goes, okay, I'm going to go take out Rao now. So they go to fight. And what's kind of cool is the younger Rao essentially is still hesitant about what older Rao is doing. Man, this is getting really confusing. But Superman actually starts to reason with the younger Rao and goes, "Hey, listen, dude, you know this isn't working, right?" And then they manage to like separate Rao from his followers using those like stones. And now Rao is like vulnerable, so Superman can actually punch him without taking out the people. In fact, what actually happened also is because like Krypton was like sent far away. I think that's what happened here. Is that the network is also disconnected, so it's kind of like Wi-Fi. That's why if you see them, they're kind of like falling. They're like, what? And then
this,
yeah, go ahead.
And the fact of him saying that, like, really showing his true colors of now saying that Cal is like an embarrassment is that really, again, you are having like this psychological and emotional battle of Clark choosing between, what he should still be proud to be, a Kryptonian and from Krypton because of his parents and his legacy as an L. But at the same time, he has to acknowledge the bad within Krypton. And
it's kind of like in Man of Steel when he's fighting Zod and he goes, and then he's in that little ship, and Zod goes, "If you destroy this ship, you destroy Krypton. Krypton had its chance."
Yeah, that was a little harsh. Just a little bit, because it felt like just within the wording, it's like, okay, yeah, what Zod was saying that Krypton was the whole part of being destroyed was more so his selfishness of feeling like, he wanted this powerful, world of and dominating other worlds. What Clark has for Krypton is that, no, I'm going to basically just preserve, what was the better part and was the good part of Krypton. That I think a line like that could have been a little bit better.
Well, here's the thing. Previously, when Clark first met Jor-El, Jor-El said, yeah, Krypton was once a great place, but we lost something. The minute we started using like the birthing matrix, we lost what makes us unique. So that's what I think Cal was saying. But by the way, so here's what actually happened, because I forgot about this part. It's been a while since I read this, but what's actually really cool, they didn't send Krypton away or anything like that. So what they did is those stones, they warped reality around the sun and aged it into a red sun. So that's why all the Kryptonians are losing their powers. And then what I like about this is that younger Rao decapitates the evil Rao. And even Superman's like, no, why'd you do that? And then he goes, someone had to. He goes, there are worse things than murder, becoming him for one. Centuries of pain, conquest, enslavement. That's my only hope for redemption. I shall take our world home, Kal-El. I will teach our people how to live, and then I'm going to die as I should have long ago. So in other words, it's kind of cool. The younger Rao sees what he grows into and is disgusted. And he's like, no, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to change.
Which, honestly, this ending, okay, so it is not meant to be that way, but it kind of is, with the parallel or whatever, or the foreshadowing of what they would do with the older post-crisis or coward Superman and the younger New 52 Superman, is that the older one, is alive and seeing the younger one die. So yeah, I don't know. I think
reversed
that
on that, kind of. By the way, so since Rao is like changing per se, I like to think in my own headcanon, this is why Krypton is shown. This is why. This is what leads to all those changes in the way Krypton is represented in the New 52 that you and I love. It's because of this. Because because the older Rao would have led to the like burn Rao, where Krypton, where everything is like very logical and stuff. And then this Rao was like, no, something has to change. Because remember, he goes back to the original timeline
to change everything. And then you have where, of course, Jurgens has revealed that Jor-El is like an evil,
oh my God.
Humans are below me unless it's Lois or something like that,
Jurgens did that?
Yeah, in one of the issues, Jor-El was basically talking about like humans being, with all the issues of war and crime,
God.
but Lois is an exception because she's supposed to be like this this great human, and that is why basically using Jor-El as this mouthpiece of that is why Clark is with her, because she's the best of humanity and the best of humans or whatever. So yeah.
And then the story ends. We get this great image of Clark holding Diana, and then we get the BS retconning ending where they're like, there's gonna be he's gonna die, but there's gonna be another Superman and some sort of awakening, a new crisis is on the way. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah, we know
referencing Superman Reborn. We know what this is. Oh God. So that's this storyline, and so that's Power and Glory, which I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. I really love that storyline.
It is a very epic storyline. Just redo the ending where it's not, forcibly showcasing or foreshadowing the whole rebirth reborn switch.
Yeah, and then it's perfect. So continuing on, we have a PowerPoint. So the other thing that we're going to talk about, because there was actually a very interesting thing. So this was not supposed to be just like 9 issues. I say 9 because 5 is not in this. This was not supposed to be like like a relatively short run. It got cut off. But Britt, do you want to like tease what we're talking about here?
All right, so we're basically going to go into how this book turned into an editorial nightmare of switches of trying to align it to everything that they wanted to force within Rebirth. And it really became even more of a mess, even before and after Reborn, because it even bled through within Hitch's Justice League book. There was a lot of, I would say, with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and this book, there was a lot of, okay, this book is now prematurely or getting canceled. They were already starting to announce the cancellations. But it felt like they uncanceled them. And Batman and Superman, I believe it got issues 31 and 32. And then Superman and Wonder Woman got 30 and 31. This book, it was canceled at I think issue 8. But then they went on to finish the story. But again, how we saw the very ending of it was retconning or whatever, that added dialogue of saying that, yeah, this new 52 Superman is going to die.
Which is BS.
Exactly. So you have Bryan Hitch within of various numbers of tweets saying that, oh, no, the book isn't canceled, you know, and at this time, this is when Bleeding Cool was very within the rumors and in the know of what's going on with DC. So they would, of course, leak stuff out. And some of the writers and artists or whoever would try to deny, you know, what's going on. And so that is what Bryan Hitch tried to do, was say, no, the book isn't canceled. We have issues 9 through 12 and an annual. He even said that you have the everything is penciled, or, you know, and teasing, you know, what would come about, which within the annual was going to be the Amazons. So yeah, so within that time, you had a lot of things going on that was shelved because of Rebirth, and then it becomes even more so a domino effect within Reborn as well.
Yeah. So yeah. He basically throughout this, he's telling people that like, don't worry, the series is not canceled, only for it to later be canceled. Because at this point, he was brought on as the Justice League writer and artist. So there
Yeah,
you go. He said, I was originally supposed to continue JLA as a writer, but that changed when I moved to Justice League.
and then he also says that this story is a prologue to his Justice League, which honestly does not make sense. But again, it was, and also the delays too. The with issue 9 and 10, and like we can obviously tell that that last page of saying that Superman is going to die and another one is coming. Yeah, issue 10 was delayed, I think, about a month or two, and wanting to basically it felt like what DC was trying to do was everything came out specifically for a reason. So you had issue 10 come out, new 52 Superman is going to die. Then you had the final issue, I think, of Final Days or something like that. and to see that he is dead, and to come out when you have the rebirth special, and that is even more so of doubling down on the fact that New 52 Superman is dead, and you have post crisis Superman back, or that kind of stuff. And again, he keeps saying that this book was supposedly all intended to be a prologue for the Rebirth Justice League. And it's kind of like, no, like the thing is, just be honest
Hmm.
and be straightforward that editorial has changes.
Yeah.
And because this story was not a prologue for another series. It just wasn't. It was basically like a fill in the blanks, and flesh out more of the earlier times with the New 52.
Yeah.
And within the span of this time, now, how we talked about, okay, where does the story fit? It can't fit anywhere that we thought, even though the beginning of it, yeah, you can fit that there, but now we can't even fit it there, because by the end of the story, you're saying that he's gonna die when he didn't die for, like, I don't know, a couple of years afterwards.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid. So during Hitch's Justice League run, we got a lot of really cool arcs and stuff. Then we got this one called The Timeless. And this one is actually pretty interesting. And I'll show like panels of this. I think did I include panels? For some reason I didn't include any panels in this. But there's a line when Superman is essentially find this timeless villain, and the dude references how there was another Superman, but you replaced him or something like that. And I was like, oh
Yeah,
god.
he says that there was another Superman, and he can see his past, and he can also see his future. So in a term, it was basically hinting that New 52 Superman was coming back. And he also said that this Superman, he can't see, like, he is unknown, like he doesn't belong here.
And
Like,
then they said, and then I love the editorial like thing. This takes place before Superman were born, and I'm like, oh, that explains it.
right. So it was kind of like, with Hitch, um they were also showing the miscommunication that was already happening, because you have Jurgens and Rucka, who is Rucka on one hand saying that Wonder Woman, she's basically cold-hearted, and she was only with Clark because it was easy, and and then you have Jurgens with her being a mouthpiece saying that you know what you feel, Lois and Clark, is true. But then within Hitch's book, you have him, uh, Diana is very conflicted of seeing post crisis Superman, and she's still in mourning of the Superman that she lost. And you know, she basically voices that the Superman that she loved is gone, and then here's somebody with his face. It was weird to her. So yeah, that whole thing, any complaint that anyone had for New 52, it happened right with Rebirth.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. It's almost like Rebirth ruined everything. So then we got this other dope arc, which I have a personal thing here. So it was called Legacy, where the children of the Justice League show up. And what's kind of interesting, so you could tell who the parents were based upon like the costumes of these characters. Like you had one for Green Lantern and Flash, which is kind of interesting because obviously Jessica and Barry don't really end up together. So how does that work? But we see Hunter Prince, who, okay, I have to show this real quick. This was the article that came across my feed. Yeah. So and this is by I think it was Screen Rant. So this pops through my thing, and I'm like, are they bringing him back? And then I read the arc and I'm like, oh, because they say, oh, it was just like you raised me. I went to live with you and John when my mother died, but you raised me, so you're kind of like my father. And I'm like,
And what,
no.
yeah, this whole thing was so weird because like when it when the um when the designs were first shown,
Mhm.
it whoever got the early like previews or whatever of the designs, it said a Hunter Prince Kent. And then like the next day or so, the Kent part of his last name was dropped off. And like once this was revealed, yes, a lot of articles came about of like Superman and Wonder Woman is going to have a son, and so what about John and Lois and stuff like that. And honestly, within this also, this Superman was so like they for if anyone wants to say Superman and Wonder Woman was forced, no. This was forced because every sentence after a while, or every other sentence, he would say, what about Lois and John, or my wife and son? It's like, why do you have to keep bringing them up? And they were in this book like they were irrelevant to anything within the Justice League, but they just kept popping up in this Justice League book, and or he kept referencing them, and it's like, why? So with this legacy art, it's 22 years within the future. Within the 22 years, honestly, yeah, things can happen. Clark and Diana can have a son, or just make it into an alternate universe or a timeline, and it could have worked. But instead, which Hitch said that, and I tried to look for those um, tweets, but maybe they were deleted. Hunter, there it was heavily edited, and especially for Hunter. So
I wonder
that
what they
you
could have edited out. By the way, speaking of irrelevant, you know what I love? Steve Trevor shows up in this story, and he asks Hunter, "So Diana's your mother. Who's your father?" And I love Hunter, not you.
right,
That's the
and
greatest. That's my favorite moment in the book.
and it's just the fact that they chose, like, first of all, how um Diana trusted it. Okay, first she is essayed, and then
Yeah, it's kind of like in Star Wars, where like Anakin Skywalker was not born. There was no father. It's like his mother. It's kind of weird, but a similar thing happened in Star Wars. But and I'm like, again, this kind of shows that DC really doesn't respect Wonder Woman.
and yeah, and then she basically committed suicide.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, why go that drastic and dark? And then it's the fact of she trusted her supposedly friend, best friend, or whatever, to take care of her son. And he grew up thinking that Diana never loved him, and abandoned him. And it's
And
kind of like,
Clark
okay,
would not tell him.
yeah, and he didn't tell him the truth. It was so weird. Like, how can he not tell him the truth? And then on the flip side, though, you had Hunter as Diana's son just praise John and Lois, and say that John is like my big brother, and Lois is like, I gave you two a hard time, but she was the best, and she, like a mother I never had, or and trying to call Clark dad, and to say that you gave me love my mother never did, and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, that is not Diana. As even if she doesn't have children, Diana loves children, so, or just her own. she would not abandon her child. So it was just such, at that time, it felt like DC really wanted to down, Diana as a character in so many ways to prop up Lois, from having a child, when for a long time Lois did not want kids. Like,
Mhm.
she's very career driven, so
Well,
giving
she
her,
also can have kids because Kryptonians and human DNA is incompatible.
exactly. So it just felt like everything that happened within, um talking about, Lois, they tried to force it upon Diana. So you have Hunter just like really, being cruel to Diana, to where it it this whole arc is all her fault. And but you get the flashback of the kids being, I guess, living in the watchtower. And to show Hunter, he's flying.
Mhm.
Diana's her ability to fly was not natural. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not like, depending on certain things,
In this
flight,
continuity, it was given by the gods, and they were very clear on
yeah,
this because even in Wonder Woman Year One by Rucka, it's established she got her powers from the gods. So there's only
yeah,
one Justice Leaguer that could have given her the power to fly. Because as far as I know, it's kind of funny. They can't say it's any of those other leaguers because guess what? None of the other leaguers in that lineup can, can naturally fly.
right. So, it even if it was New 52 origin, I think she still didn't like have natural flight. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, so even if she did, it developed later on, but still, it was, and it was said that that was kind of like a weakness, that she couldn't um fly, she it wasn't as good as Clark
Mhm.
natural. So yeah, him flying, and he was happy. And also, um
Where's
it,
Damien?
Damien turned evil.
Okay, that explains it. Because
But
I was about because I was thinking here, Children of the Justice League. Where's Batman's kid? And I was like, oh, okay, he turned evil. That makes sense. That tracks.
yeah, it seriously, all of this really, like, you're showing the children of the Justice League, but with the flashbacks, it's a lot of telling and not showing. If
Hmm.
Hunter was supposed to be like this bad kid that didn't have, you know uh friends, or he was having a difficult time, why wasn't that shown in the flashback? You know,
Exactly.
and if he was, why didn't it show that uh Damien um and John, which is kind of, is ironic that you have Damien and John with Trinity now,
Hmm.
and but with this arc with Hunter, you had Damien and John, as big brothers or whatever to Hunter, or Damien as the friend and John being the supposed big brother. But it's still the fact that Wonder Woman, to have her children, it's kind of like they were taken away from her to prop up, John and Damien, and then essentially Lois too. And you know, with this art, to blame Diana for, to say that, like, she's the cause of a war or this
The
darkness.
apocalypse.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, okay, but I mean, she was a victim of abuse, of,
So
how can she be uh the catalyst or whatever, or the villain, of
yeah,
this? it,
here's
it
the
was
funny part
very,
though. I just realized this. The villain's name is Sovereign.
yeah, that too.
I'm starting to wonder here.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
noticed that, and I'm like, wait a minute here, and it's a Wonder Woman villain.
Yeah, I
Wasn't
when
Sovereign also Hippolyta?
yes, which was very weird. It I, she's Hippolyta from another timeline, from the timeline that the kids are from,
But
or
still,
whatever.
isn't it kind of funny how I'm like, this is starting to get a little suspicious, but
Yeah.
I don't want to accuse anything, but it
Well, it's
seems
already happened.
it's already happened many times. But anyway, now let me. So to conclude, Britt. Now here's the thing: we at Comics League, when we point out issues, pun intended, we like to provide solutions. So how would we do the legacy arc? Now the way I would do it, because I've thought about this, is I would have the arc take place immediately after Darkseid War. And instead of the dark forces that impregnates Wonder Woman, obviously, I would have it more or less that like Wonder Woman is essentially pregnant with Hunter during the whole like final days of Superman arc, and you can still keep like the parental. Okay, so here's a better way to translate this. So instead of the impregnate, we ignore the whole impregnate thing, but we could just say like Wonder Woman had to go away or something like that. Like he's still like the consensual child of Superman and Wonder Woman, because good lord, Wonder Woman being impregnated by a dark force is creepy as hell. And they do the whole apocalypse thing that's caused, and they're like, we have to warn our parents. Now what we could say is we could essentially say, we could kind of keep the resentment, because we could say like Wonder when he was a baby. So Diana gives birth, and there's a big battle, and then they die. Hunter never knew his parents in this timeline, so when he goes back, that's why he kind of has the resentment thing that we can kind of still keep. Except obviously he has it for Clark as well, because Clark is his father. But then he later learns to appreciate. He's like, these were my parents. They would never just abandon me. In other words,
Exactly. And also, another thing is that he felt like he was abandoned because he was a boy.
mm-hmm.
I still just can't understand how Clark, how he let Hunter believe that. Like, you wouldn't tell stories about Diana, you just let him go. And
Yeah,
then,
that's the part that's really sus for me. Like Clark wouldn't. Maybe Lois wouldn't let him tell any positive stories about Diana.
yeah,
Mhm.
and then just Hunter's design. If he was so like ashamed of like Diana, and
Why would
he,
he wear the arm bracelets and all that?
exactly,
He
why
has
would
the
you wear,
lasso.
yeah, why would you wear like everything that belongs to her? It's just it's just this arc is so weird. Like it's a lot of plot holes and discrepancies. Is like it's too much. And again, you can tell that it was heavily um editorial, driven, especially to demonize Diana and prop up Lois at the end of it all. And then at the end of the story, when I guess they have this solution where Sovereign or Hippolyta tells the truth and says that, your mother was uh, essayed and she tried to protect you. And then all of a sudden, everything is all happy. But it still just felt like, okay, this story could have been prevented if you would have just like let him be a time displaced or, another timeline kid of Superman and Wonder Woman just naturally. And I feel like with the fact of Hitch, implying that um he saw like New 52 his legacy. And there's another panel. I couldn't find it, but there's another panel of him talking about New 52 legacy and his future. So you would think that, okay, the arc is legacy. So yeah, Hunter is technically New 52 Superman and Wonder Woman's son. just editorial, they decided to go with something that was just unnecessary to keep the status quo of John and Lois.
Yeah, and well, at least we can kind of say that like maybe it actually still happened because the interesting thing about this is that alternate timelines and Earth 52, so we could still do that. And but I would wonder, I would think that like the last line of this is of the if in my version of the story, so they're going back and then Hunter's with his parents and he goes, I wore this stuff to prove that I was a better hero than you, because I thought you abandoned me, but now I wear it because I'm proud of who my parents are.
Yeah, it can be something like that. Even at the beginning of the arc,
Mhm,
um, there's where Diana is like she had her hand on Clark's chest. And
mhm.
so that's another discrepancy because it's like they're getting cozy and you know there's also a panel where they're showing the kids with their parents. Um so you have um Jessica and Barry with um their daughter, and I
Mhm.
think they have twins too. So
Yeah.
they have three kids. So you have them, and then another side you have Clark and Diana with Hunter. Then you have Cyborg with his kid, and then Aquaman and Arthur and Mira's daughter. So yeah, it's a lot of discrepancy within this, and yeah, to show that if Hunter had to be abandoned, it will only be because something happened to Clark and Diana. And yeah, having them die makes it, so much more believable than Clark being his adopted, father. And he doesn't have anything good to say to Diana when she trusted him to take care of him. And then the conversation that Clark also has with Lois is asking her if she's okay with this. And he basically says that he apologizes, saying that, it's kind of like he treated Hunter like some like lost puppy, like an abandoned puppy. And yeah, it's very insulting, the changes that they did when like you could have done this so much more tastefully. And especially at the end when they say that I hope to meet you again. In order for you to meet again, you know, that has to happen with the darkness being his father or something. So yeah, it's just all of this is confusing.
Yeah, and yeah, it's all of Rebirth was like one contradiction after another, which is kind of weird.
Exactly. And
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, even at the end, how Clark, like, he has his hand around Diana's shoulder. So it's kind of like, what are you
This
doing?
was clearly meant to be New 52, and I wonder if Hitch had actually drawn it, and then he had to change it last minute to like it's like Rebirth stuff.
Yeah, I honestly feel like because Hitch was within, um, writing JLA, I feel like the arcs um, that were within his Justice League run was for actually JLA. It's just the fact of, you know, the book got canceled. I don't think that he would have, stories within the short period of time of, planning this with JLA and his Rebirth Justice League. It just seemed like, yeah, that's what happened. He
Yeah,
took the stories that were supposed to be for JLA and rewrote them to go within um, Rebirth. But even at the same time, you had Reborn that
yeah,
totally,
that's kind of an issue. Pun
yeah,
intended.
that totally messed things up even more so. So yeah, this story overall was good.
Mhm.
Power and Glory. It
Yeah.
was going over it, seeing the details. I would love for this to be adapted um, as an animated movie. I don't know. There was an interview with the producers of the Tomorrowverse, and they basically, again, things get cut short.
Mhm.
They wanted 20 movies, but were basically demanded to reduce it to 10. They, so this rush of crisis isn't their fault. Of course, it's WB, but just to
At
cut
least they
them
put
off,
Superman with Wonder Woman. Mhm.
that's true. Um, but the cutoff, though, was for James Gunn for his animation or whatever. So I
Yeah.
don't know. They
That's
will
also why
have Elseworlds.
that's also why Superman and Lois is not getting any more stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, to try to have, yeah, you have a unified vision, but at the same time, you don't just like e- uh, cancel everything just to have that one, vision of, because what if you put
What the
your,
fans want. That's the thing. It's not like it's not exactly popular version of these characters. No, these are relatively like beloved versions of these characters.
and you're also just putting all your eggs in one basket. Like if something happens to where something, underperforms, what are you going to do? Because you have, blocked all other plans. So, I mean, at the time of the Tomorrowverse, and it's just the same way. Um, with Tuckerverse, he wanted his post-crisis type verse or whatever, so he messed up New 52. He was blindsided by them cutting him off for the Tomorrowverse. The Tomorrowverse kind of tried to start off with the same stuff of, you know, starting with the young Clark. Um, they didn't have him with Lois. They were more antagonistic and really no romantic hints whatsoever. But you know, it was the fact that everything was done off screen and you know, just this rush feeling, and they still didn't have a proper development of the Justice League. So within that, if they had to, have a choice, they could have just did like a story like this. You know, they were wanting so bad to develop Crisis, but I just feel like a story like this would have been a better placement.
Yeah, exactly. So, but all in all, again, I really enjoyed this arc. It's one of my favorites of the new 52 because it dug so much into Krypton, and I feel like that's a part of Superman's like mythology that's been like either ignored or butchered by certain writers. I'm looking at you, Jurgens and Byrne. But so it's really cool to see it properly represented. But all in all, pretty dope, and I really hope that we get to see. I see. This is why the DC Ultimate universe would be great if it's New 52 because you can actually tell Hitch, hey, let's do the original version of the legacy arc with this actually being their kid. See how that kind of changes everything.
True. Well, Hitch is now an exclusive for
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Ghost Machine. I'm like, oh man, but I don't know. We can hope for the future. But anyway, so let's wrap this up. Britt, where can we find? We all know. So actually, no, sure. Where can we find you? And do you have any stories you want to tease us?
okay, so as always, um you have the Instagram, Diana and Cal's Instagram. We are close to 61,000.
Oh, jeez.
So
So we probably 30 more followers away from that. As far as stories, of course, you and I are going back and forth with our who can one up each other, and I am getting close thanks to this new Beyonce album. Yes.
Don't be so sure.
Also, I'm very sure. Also one shots that I'm doing that, like I said, I have unfortunately abandoned, but getting back to it. Stories that also I just needed a little bit more time to develop and have a clear vision for it. So now that I have that, plus the stories that you and I are developing, which is a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, just working on those and slowly but surely being able to upload them.
Sweet. So stay heroic, everyone. And remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. Zoe is for life. See you later.